Hello, this is Dr. Carola Fortner with your welcome and overview for week 2 of our class. And let's take a look at our overview. There are some interesting chapters this week, and we are looking at chapter 5 of intellectual disabilities. And we also talk about chapter 6 with autism spectrum disorder and childhood onset schizophrenia. Many of you are actually pretty well knowledgeable about the autism spectrum disorder. I noticed in our discussion that you have work experience and deep knowledge in that field, and we are going to be learning about both of those areas. Let me highlight some ideas in terms of the clinical management of childhood onset schizophrenia. Here's an interesting article that I will have in your announcements for this week, and it discusses that childhood schizophrenia at one point was sort of grouped in with autism, and at the same time eventually it also got separated out again. Today the research indicates that there is quite a bit of overlap. We have to be careful though when we're looking at any kind of psychosis, that we are aware of children who are just simply having an imaginary friend and maybe have some hallucinations while they transition into sleep. And there are some concerns about looking at developmental issues. When we argue, let me kind of go back to our overview here and tell you something also in regards to intellectual disabilities. One of the arrogances of people with high intellectual abilities is that they might think that someone with an intellectual disability somehow is less valuable of a human being, which of course is not true. One of the metaphors that I kind of like to think about is that we as human beings are born or served up with different kind of cars and different kind of environments to drive them in, but that our driver is perfect in every way. And so when you think about somebody with intellectual disabilities, they have different cognitive functioning and different adaptive skills. So the human being, though, is perfect, and the environment that they have to adapt to may also be more challenging, and the combination of the two make for a different life experience. So we need to keep in mind that the driver, no matter what our car and what kind of given abilities and disabilities we have, the driver is a perfect being. So having said that, I want to give you a little example. I was working as a psychotherapist with a young woman. When I first worked with her, she was a teenager with Down syndrome. And I did a lot of art therapy with her because she had limited language processing. And when I started out, I felt pretty special, thinking that, oh, look at this, I'm so fancy, I'm working in art therapy with somebody with Down syndrome. And very quickly I learned that she actually taught me quite a bit about kindness, about approach to life, and it was a humbling experience in that I probably learned just as much in our time together as hopefully she also learned and got out of the experience. What is interesting is that she also had psychotic symptoms, and those made her functioning even more difficult, because she would do something like she would sit down in the middle of the street, and she had this idea that Spider-Man was her friend and that he would come and save her if she was in a dangerous situation. So you can see that psychosis can be a factor in just about any mental health condition, which makes it a little bit more complicated to sort out, to see who has schizophrenia, or even more rarely early childhood onset schizophrenia. So let's kind of take a look at our work here. This week we have a discussion board that deals with facilitated communication, which is, as it says here, for some people seen as a miraculous way for autistic children. So you get a chance to discuss this. Make sure that your post is long enough, and that you use proper citation, and that you respond to 4 or more fellow peers here in regards to their posts in a meaningful way. Then we have our case study. In this case, it's Jenny, I should say, and it's from our case book, and it deals with autism and mental retardation. And you will complete the questions on page 135 to 136, and you'll post the answers in Canvas in a narrative format, so that you are not necessarily, you don't want to do like bullets as such, but in an essay format, in a scholarly tone. And be sure to include proper citations and go in depth, and make sure you also proofread for grammar and spelling. So that's this for this week. I hope you have a great week. As always, feel free to ask me any questions that you might have, and contact me with concerns. And here we go, week 2.